but obviously the agri-sector and agriculture is of such importance to Ireland, and will become even more so as time goes on. I intend to meet with the farming organisations during the course of this election to give them the details of our own programme there. Dennis Naughton reminds me that our New Era programme will create 100,000 jobs in pipeline, in water renewables and energy over the next number of years. Andrew mentioned about the waterways, the Shannon. I agree. There was a ministerial report published back in the 50s which set out a blueprint for managing this, and managing is the word. Many of the agencies dealing with the waters of the Shannon, as you know, have been there in some cases since before the foundation of the state. And each has references in some cases in the Constitution, so there's a lot of authority vested here. The ESB obviously control the level of the water of Ardnacrusha, and anything above that is stopped by Ardnacrusha if they wish to do it, and anything below it, if they let out too much, floods south of there, so it's a problem. The Board of Works, Waterways Ireland, and all of the other 53 organisations, I feel that it's not going to be possible to do something legislatively in a short time because of the constitutional implications for some of these organisations. When the water is flowing in the back door or it's coming up over the fields and you know it's going to reach your house, you're not interested in that, you want something done about it. And you have all sorts of things going on from the different environmental groups about islands in the Shannon and the non-ability of even taking silt out in locations. I'm not going to go so far as to what they did back in the 30s or 40s when they said they drained the Shannon, but what I do think is necessary that there be set in place in a supervisory management structure for the waters of the Shannon, and that each in their own way can retain the responsibilities that they have. Whether it be appropriate to appoint the OPW as the lead organisation here or not, I'm not actually sure, because others will say that they have equal authority and responsibility under the legislation which set them up. But what I did do, I met all the Western deputies about this, was to set out our view of a structure that might be able to get much more effective cooperation in the way water management actually takes place. As I say, I felt very sorry for all the people a couple of years ago from Ballinasloe up there who were flooded for weeks on end with the rising waters of the Shannon. It's not an easy situation. I think that's probably the most credible thing actually to do with it. With respect to the question about the freedom of information, I agree with you. The Dáil is public insofar as its proceedings are published. The Shannon is public insofar as its proceedings are published. Most of the Dáil committees are also public, on television in some cases, and the proceedings there are published. There are some committees that do meet in committee depending on the nature of the issue that they're dealing with. One was in regard to the impeachment of a judge some years ago, and those meetings were held in committee and in private. I would like to see, and I've already committed, to not only opening the books of the country so that the people will know the way their country was run, but to restoring the freedom of information to much like what was intended in the first instance. Now there are issues of national security and all the rest of it that are not and that should not be let out to everybody under the freedom of information, but it should be far more flexible than it is. I'll give you an example. Bernard Allen was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee for the last number of years. He found that in his committee, which is the public watchdog for the expenditure of monies having been assessed by the CNAG's office in Ireland, he wasn't able to get information under the Freedom of Information Act because it became so restrictive under Charlie McCreevy and subsequent regimes. But I intend to change that, maybe not to the same extent as it was in the very beginning, but certainly to make it much more open and much more flexible. And I'm glad to meet Macharahis and Chin, because at least you were able to write on the iPhone with the proper Gael here, which I admit to say I find it very difficult to write it grammatically correct, but I can speak it. I've lost that skill, and credit to you for what you said to me. I have an issue about this, and it's a hot issue, I suppose, in many ways. In fact, as somebody who loves the language and who speaks it, I'd like to think that we should address what is wrong here. And in my view, as somebody who stood before a class many years ago, the teaching of modern languages, the teaching of languages is something that is now it's very easy to do with the knowledge that's there and the opportunities and the facilities. But for some reason in our own country, there are literally thousands of young boys and girls who go halfway through secondary school and they are unable to put together 5 sentences in their native tongue, despite the fact that they've been learning it for 10 or 12 or 13 years. And yet, in the cases where 4,000 or so got exemptions from Irish last year, for whatever reason, half of them took Spanish or French or German. Now, I think this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And in my view, what I've said Fine Gael will do is carry out a detailed analysis of the curriculum to see whether it's relevant today or not. Also, on the investment in training teachers to teach. In Finland 20 years ago, they began to invest really heavily in the training of teachers in how to teach. And I want to say this, if I'm a poor teacher of mathematics or whatever, the children in my class are at a disadvantage. Next teacher is a brilliant teacher of science or whatever else, those children have an advantage. I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to have that brilliance in another classroom available for everybody. Why can't we have it up on the Department of Education website or the net to say, here are the mathematics program, here are the 30 experiments, and I'm going to show you how to do them. I'm going to tell you what it means, I'm going to explain it to you, so that the child who is at a disadvantage can have that access as a backup to what it is that they do. It should be very simple. In respect to the language, what Fine Gael want to do here is say to young people, if you're filling out a CAO form, and you're able to do things after your junior cert, do you want to take this language to Leaving Cert or not? And I say we will continue Irish at the higher level to Leaving Cert, we will continue Irish at the Gael level to Leaving Cert, and we will introduce a new programme which we would call Cummersá Deas Gaeilge, or Conversation in Irish, that's available to everybody as well. But it would also increase the marks for Oral Irish from 40% to 50% to give that advantage, so that children will go to the Gaeltacht, the Colossi Saure and all that, can improve their language. And look at the question of extra marks for higher level and for those who want to go on to third level who do their subject through Irish. Now, I have first-hand experience of many schools around the country. In some cases, we've talked an awful lot of baloney about the language over many years. There are situations where books are 10 years out of date, where in specialist schools it's very difficult to get teachers to teach subjects through Irish, and yet it's recognised as a European language. It is the only subject that is compulsory. Mathematics and English are not compulsory in the secondary school handbook. And from that point of view, I said recently that would only trigger the non-compulsion of Irish after I would examine the curriculum and the effectiveness of the investment that we're making in the teaching, in the training of teachers to teach our native language. I would like to think that while so many speak Irish well now, and it's kin all cool as they say, that we'll have far more people able to make a much better effort than we have at the moment. And I don't think it's, I've met students who might have got 590, might have got almost full marks in their Irish, and yet because it's a system of rote learning in many cases, it's not as conversational as it should be. And conversation for me in our native tongue is something that I think should be very important. I think that deals with all of those, John.
We're in it today, but I'll take 2 final questions now. So, one person there. Yeah.
Leader of Fine Gael, Enda Kenny, I'm very impressed with you here tonight. I want to make a special appeal to you on that part of the people of Leitrim. The reason we haven't got a TD in Leitrim is we have been neglected down the years for several years. We've been on the hind tit year after year for the last 20 years. And that's why we're suffering at the moment. You were talking about reforming the Dáil and reforming the Senate. That's a good idea in several ways. But I hope that every county in Ireland will have a representative within their own county. I hope that'll be the bottom line. And the reason I say that is, the people in Leitrim are as good as Fine Gael is doing in any part of the country or even in the world. And I know that from my own experience. They're super people. I know from people working at national school level the whole way up. They're struggling on a night like tonight, which I done myself, training 11 and 12 people in a football field. And we were let down by county councils when it came to planning permission and by other agencies. It absolutely broke my heart to see a member of our club having to go and live in County Cavan. There was no support for our region in a disadvantaged area. And that's why I think everybody which spoke their mind want this problem really addressed. And I want Fine Gael to be there for not only 26 counties, but the 32 counties. I want to be an all-inclusive party, which will stand up for everybody, which are doing at the moment, but I hope that this will be included in that message that you're sending out here tonight. You're the man that can do it. You can transform the North West. And as far as I'm concerned, the cancer service in Sligo must be retained, because that is the block to build around it, and the clubs and the social scene around here. We want a central point. Sligo's the central point. I'm very disappointed with their TDs in Sligo. I'm also very disappointed with Brendan Smith, Minister for Agriculture. He comes from the same hinterland as myself. We've been ravished with cuts, absolutely devastated with cuts. Some of us are losing 5, 6 and 7,000. We're ordinary farmers and we're below the minimum line already. And I think it's a total disgrace. We're in a disadvantaged area, not alone disadvantaged, but third tier. And a few years ago we were going to be special category in Europe. So I just wanted to take that on board, because a lot of people here working hard at national school level. The numbers are dropping. We're in a situation again where employment is, immigration is going to start all over again. All our good work is going out the window. At the very least, any county deserves is a representative from each county to represent their views. I want to wish you well in the future. I want to pay a special tribute to Frank Feehan for all the work he done in our area. He's been a super TD, and I hope he gets re-elected.
Francis Denson.
Our final speaker.
Francis Denson, I'm a citizen. First of all, I thought you for the Ruach Genda. I have never had the privilege of meeting you before, so this is a first for me. You spoke there at length about the HSE, the graveyard of many a minister, and you talked about trimming the fat, and you talked about equality, and you know, the one thing that needs to be addressed, and this would be my concern, is the whole area of consultants. We have the lowest number of consultants, but funny enough, the highest paid or third highest paid consultants in Europe. Now, if there's to be equality in the system, the people at the top must pay. Are you, through your minister, potential minister, Mr. Riley, who was formerly in the medical field, going to renegotiate the consultant's contract, because if everyone else is suffering the HSE frontline and administrative staff, the fattest in the land should be trimmed as well? And are you going to do that? Can you give us a commitment in Carrick that you can address that, and that it is going to be a case of the poacher turning gamekeeper? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Francis, thank you for that question. The answer to your question is yes. We will renegotiate the consultant's contract.